Hello and welcome into the Touchdown NFL podcast. A happy podcast. We got a couple of wins and a relaxing bye week from me. It's Lee, Willow, and Taib with you guys. So yeah, guys, how are you guys? You all right? Good weekend.
Tape start off. Oh no, he's mute himself. Yeah, no, good weekend. Watched literally, and it wasn't until somebody posted at about 10 o'clock on Sunday morning that we were getting like 15 hours of football. I was just like, oh my word, because I didn't go to the London game this weekend, so I got to watch that. Endure that on the ITV coverage. I'm not going to go into the whole thing. I'll probably write a little piece about it, but it's some strange choices made on their part, and then into the Falcons, who are back, baby. We can't stop winning. Who's going to stop us? Nobody's going to stop us until next week when we've got with Washington, I think. But no, yeah, good. It's nice to win. It's nice to win, isn't it? Like, yeah, I know you can't lose the bye week, but you can't. You know, that's as good as a win as far as I'm concerned. Like, yeah, good.
Yeah, I mean, I've got a couple of Chargers friends, and we were messaging each other prior to the weekend, just saying like, we're both Leeds fans as well. So after Leeds won on Saturday, we were like, that's in the bag, and there's no Staley ball to shred our nerves on the weekend.
Perfect weekend.
Sunday, should I say? So yeah, absolutely perfect. Dallas on the Monday Night Football is next, so we're getting to prolong the rest, let's say, from that. So yeah, it's good. And you obviously threatened to just take over the podcast with Falcons talk, so we'll kind of maybe get a little bit of that in later. But yeah, team, obviously, Detroit are real, right?
Yeah, in the sense that I think sometimes, like, no Lions team in my lifetime ever beats like not so very good teams easily. Like, even in the Jim Caldwell era, when the Lions were kind of a 9-7, kind of 8-8 type of team, these types of games, like I remember they played a game against Indianapolis without Andrew Luck and ended up 38-35, and Detroit needed a last-second field goal to win it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's kind of the way, even against like relatively weaker teams. That's how the Lions always kind of historically played. So to see them, that game was done by half time. So it was kind of weird. The second half was really just like, it was almost like a practice game. Like, so many Lions kind of came out in the fourth quarter in the end. It was kind of strange, but yeah, I think sometimes good teams, like, they should win pretty comfortably against not so good teams. And at the moment the Panthers are really struggling. So like, from a Lions point of view, just win. Didn't have to exert too much emotionally and physically ahead of what's now a big away game in Tampa on Sunday. So yeah, like, you can't complain. I think they're probably just underneath San Francisco, Philadelphia, and Dallas, but it's not a bad place to be realistically. Like, for the Lions, it wasn't anything about like thinking beyond that. It's win the division, get a home playoff game, and then take it from there. And so like, they've made a solid enough start, more than solid, really.
Yeah, definitely, and that'll be a good game against the sneaky Bucks, won't it? They've been quite decent, and obviously the Lions, like I say, feeling quite real. So yeah, we've got the usual format for you guys. We've got big takeaways from the weekend, big talking points from the weekend. We'll talk about a game of the week each. A few more talking points, I'm sure, will crop up, and then we'll have a laugh. We'll have a laugh at the misfortune of some other teams in our meme and GIF little segment before we make our Monday night predictions. But I'm looking forward to that one in particular. We've got some good ones that are going to be fired off in that little bit. But yeah, like I say, before we get to that, David, let's stick with you. You've put quite a, I wouldn't say a bold take, but you put something quite spicy on the prep sheet in that Gardner Minshew is the best backup in the NFL.
Yeah, I mean, there are some good ones. You look at Teddy Bridgewater's obviously got a lot of pedigree as a starting quarterback. But I always said, like, 95%, like, say for example, knock on wood, this never happens, but like Justin Herbert was out for the season. Chances are the Charger season's probably over. If like Tua, we saw last season when Tua got taken out, like, even though Miami could still score points with people like Skylar Thompson, it wasn't as potent as it could have been. If Burrow went out for any stretch of time, Cincinnati season would pretty much be done. Like, most teams don't have like a really good backup plan because, like, let's be honest, the drop off from, if you're going from MVP caliber quarterback to just like normal, it's like, it's pretty severe drop off. Andy Dalton's probably up there as well as one of the better ones as well. When he came in, Carolina scored a lot of points in that game in Seattle. But Minshew, to be fair to him, like, you could argue he maybe should be a starting quarterback in the NFL for some of those teams kind of further down the league. Because ultimately, like, he's kind of what you want from a bridge guy. Like, he's not going to do anything ridiculous. Like, he's not going to like do anything like insanely positive. Like, you know what I mean? He's not going to like hurdle a defender as Josh Allen would do, or kind of like evade 2 sacks and then throw it across his body like Mahomes would do, or rush for 100 yards like Lamar Jackson would do. But like, he kind of comes in, he knows the offenses that he plays in, makes kind of smart decisions, and doesn't really make a lot of bad decisions. And to be fair, he did that again yesterday. Like, it wasn't a great game, but like, he came in after Anthony Richardson got injured, and you look at Richardson now, he got hurt in week 1, and he came out, I think, for a series. Minshew came in. Then obviously he got the concussion in week 2, so he didn't play in week 3. Obviously, then the Colts beat Baltimore in that game, and then he got injured in this game early as well. And like, I think when you've got like decent, like skilled players, obviously they got Zach Moss, who played really well yesterday. They got Jonathan Taylor, who's coming back. Michael Pittman's kind of a big-bodied wide receiver, so he's a big catching target. Like, Minshew can come in and kind of, he's shown already, like, he can just kind of keep the Colts ticking over. And at 3-2 now, with Richardson set to be out for like a month, you know, like, that's about as good a backup plan as you can have. Like, it's weird seeing, like, I know a lot of Colts fans, and instead of being like doom and gloom about they've just lost the 4th overall pick to potentially, you know, 3, 4, maybe even more weeks, like, well, hang on, we can still win with Gardner Minshew, and that's such a luxury to have. And so fair play to them, and fair play to him, because like, he could have kind of been a bit miffed, like, well, he has this inexperienced rookie taking all these snaps ahead of me. Do you know what I mean? Like, what's that all about, type of thing? Like, he could have been like a bit awkward about it, but he's not. And like, he said himself in the press conference, like, all my job is to make everybody else look better. You know, I'm not here to be a hero. I'm just here to do my job. I think that's a really good attitude to have, because sometimes I think backup quarterbacks come in wanting to prove themselves that they deserve a starting job elsewhere. But like, so far he hasn't done that. He's just made the throws when he's needed to make them, and he's stayed away from like really bad plays, which ultimately has always kind of plagued a lot of second string quarterbacks in the NFL. So fair play to Gardner Minshew. Like, you got to give him credit for his attitude, and the fact that whenever he's come in, it's been like some sort of crisis because Richardson's been hurt, and the fact that like young man's been hurt 3 times in 5 weeks doesn't really bode well. But Richardson's but Minshew's just kept them on an even keel, like, made everybody else look good, and he's kind of just been smart about it. Like, fair play to him. I got to give him a lot of credit. Now we've got a really spicy game because he's going back to Jacksonville, 3-2 Colts versus the 3-2 Jaguars. So like, I think Minshew is about as good a backup quarterback as you can have. And the fact that the Colts have got so much confidence in him that they can carry on winning with him kind of underlines that he probably maybe should be a starting quarterback somewhere else.
I think just to sort of touch on Gardner Minshew, I wrote a little bit about last week, week before last, maybe, whenever he played against Baltimore. The thing you can say about him, basically for the duration of his NFL career thus far, is that he's never looked out of place. He's always kind of been a bit of a steady, and he became a bit of a bit because he had a mustache and a headband, and everybody wants to sort of make a character of it. But like, at no point has he ever kind of looked like he doesn't belong in the NFL in the same way that you get with some other backup quarterbacks. I mean, not to single anyone specifically out, but the one that immediately jumps in is Nate Peterman, who comes in and throws 5 interceptions and 6 passes or whatever. It's like, I know that different circumstances or whatever, but he's always felt like he's capable of being an NFL quarterback. And you look at like the trajectory of his career, it's always kind of been kind of what he has now. He's never been the first choice. He's never been like the plan. I know Jacksonville rolled with him as their starter for a season, but then you look at who they had around him and it's like, oh, okay, very clearly you're going for Trevor Lawrence. All right, fine, you're setting this guy up to fail. It's a good situation for him because, like you say, he's going to get now a good few games to kind of prove himself, and there's a very good opportunity, a very good chance that he could be seen as another team's bridge quarterback next season or the season after, or even Indianapolis if they want to make sure that their main guy is good and ready to go when he's back healthy. They've got to find a way to keep him healthy because he's electric. But yeah, like you say, he's exactly what you want from a backup quarterback, in that you don't miss a beat with him. In that it's at no point does it feel like the play is dropping. At no point you don't, not necessarily going to elevate your play hugely, but at no point does it feel like he doesn't belong out there, and that's probably the biggest compliment I can pay to him.
Yeah, I think that's fair. First of all, I just want to touch upon the fact that Taib said he's not going to do anything ridiculous when he's been compared to Uncle Rico, has a mustache, mullet, etc., and wears cut-off jean shorts in college. I guess you're talking about a different type of ridiculous.
His style is bizarre. But as I said, like I think like the first year Jared Goff was with the Lions, I think he was out for 2 or 3 with COVID. And so Tim Boyle came in. Like Tim Boyle was the Lions' backup quarterback. There was a man that threw more interceptions than he did complete passes in college, or something ridiculous like that. And he was the second choice. And then like now, obviously, he's the second choice in New York with the Jets. So like if Zach Wilson went down, like he had a pulled hamstring, just for argument's sake, Tim Boyle's playing quarterback for the Jets. Like that's really kind of like where a lot of teams kind of probably don't value the backup quarterback. It's just like, well, you're a guy who can throw the ball. We'll just stick you in and see what happens. Well, like fair play to Indianapolis for finding a guy who I think ultimately he knows what he is. He's not going to, like, as I said, he's not going to try and beat 5 defenders and stiff arm them all out of his way and then, throw off his back foot and try and throw for 70 yards or anything. He just he knows his limitations and he knows what he's good at. And I think the other thing as well is like pretty much all the Colts players after yesterday's game were like, we trust him, we believe in him. And I think, again, like that's what you want in a backup quarterback. You look at like the 49ers, whenever Garoppolo got hurt before last year, it was always CJ Beathard or Blaine Gabbert and these people. And as great as Kyle Shanahan is, even he couldn't make it work with those guys. So like, and probably the team didn't believe in those guys, which makes it even harder. And that's why they had so many kind of lost seasons whenever Garoppolo did get hurt. Well, at least within like Minshew, we can just keep the train rolling. As I said, forever how long Anthony Richardson's out. They got a big divisional game this weekend. Like as I said, like Thomas said, doesn't look out of place. He looks like just a normal NFL quarterback. Look, he's not going to win the MVP, but he's not Nathan Peterman or Tim Boyle or kind of other guys that have come in and played backup before.
Yeah, like you say, he's going to get a little bit of a sample size to put on tape, isn't he? With Shane Steichen coming out and saying that Anthony Richardson's going to miss some time. It sounds like he's going to be out for a few weeks. Sound like they're tossing up whether to put him on IR short term. So
just on a side note, that's like already become quite a problem for Indianapolis. Like I know obviously like a lot of people compared him to Cam and like, but Cam he didn't have as many injuries so early on. It was kind of at the back end. Like you think obviously he built up and then had a ridiculous MVP season, and then the kind of hits and the concussions and the injuries kind of came in after the MVP season. But like for him to already have like 3 kind of concerning injuries in such a short space of time. And the other thing I think that worries me about him is like if I was an NFL defender and I see Anthony Richardson running, I'm like, you know what, you're a rookie kid. Like I am coming in to drill you in the middle of next week. Like he's a big target for someone to give him like a welcome to the NFL hit, and like it's a weird one because you don't want to take away his running power. Like nobody ever wanted to take that away with Cam, but at some point you got to like protect him from himself. Because this is what you hope for the long term, like to already have like several injuries within the first 5 weeks of a career that you hope lasts for 10, 15 years. It's kind of concerning.
Yeah, there's definitely going to be some sort of coaching, to get him to protect himself, to choose his moments a little bit better when he's going to, take off on these runs and, got to protect himself as he needs the franchise now. I wanted to kind of finish off with this though, but let me put it to both of you. Obviously, we've got pre-season trade on the eve of the season. Josh Dobbs going to Indianapolis, going to the Cardinals. Do you think they would have been better served getting Minshew then? Or I know that Cardinals don't particularly want to win, but just kind of like put a point on you saying that he might be the best backup in the NFL. Josh Dobbs was a backup; he's now a starter. He's playing pretty well without winning loads of games. That's to do with the Cardinals in general. What do you guys think?
Yeah. I suppose Minshew had started probably a lot more than what Josh Dobbs did. I think it was something that Josh Dobbs had made his first start last season, even though he'd kind of bounced around the league for 4 or 5 years. But obviously Minshew, for as much as like that season in Jacksonville, he was set up to fail, like he got like a lot more reps underneath him. Dobbs is good. He probably was just at the point where like Indianapolis probably thought, well, like Gardner's just more experienced than Josh Dobbs at this point. Like, am I right in saying Dobbs came in for a Tennessee game against Dallas on a Thursday night late last season? And I think that was something like his debut in the NFL, despite being drafted like 4 or 5 years earlier. So he probably just had a bit more experience. Although Dobbs is playing really well, to be fair, like again, in a situation where he's kind of the fall guy a little bit, or like he's come in like kind of knowing that like, well, Arizona aren't going to win a lot of games, even though they're competing in a lot of their games. Dobbs would be right up there. He's another one. Like I said, there are a few out there. Dalton's another one. where you feel like if Bryce Young got
QB
hurt,
sneak
then
specialist.
yeah, QB sneak specialist. So like there are a few out there. But as I said, it's underrated, as I said, because suddenly
It's
like
really
the
important.
Chargers had it the other way around when Tyrod Taylor obviously got injured after being injected with whatever he was injected with, and then Herbert walks on, steals the show, and never looks back. Like it is important because like if your starting quarterback does go down, you got to try and keep the train rolling somehow.
Yeah, no,
I
absolutely.
just looked it
Absolutely.
up. I just looked it up. Sorry, Josh Dobbs is making $1.5 million this season, which is the same as what Minshew is making. So I mean, the only argument I could find for one way or the other is that financial, given Kyler Murray is on a wedge, and they just maybe wanted to sort of pinch pennies a little bit. But I mean, I think Dobbs has done pretty well for himself, and I can fully see a scenario where another team next season decides we're going to draft somebody early and have this guy start for 7 games. So yeah, and again, interested to see what happens with Minshew next season, because presumably they'd want to keep him around if he does quite well, just for the sake of that sort of continuity and having that sort of decent backup. But then if things go well, his sort of his sort of what he can demand sort of probably increases 2 or 3 times as much as it is at the moment. So yeah, we'll see. But I agree with Taven in that he's pretty good. I've always had a bit of a soft spot for him, probably because of the meme of it. But he's quite good. And I'm enjoying seeing him play at the moment. Hopefully it works out well. I'd like to see the Colts be good again for a bit. That'd be nice.
Yeah, I think with Dobbs, it's kind of elevating him potentially into that Jacoby Brissett tier, where he'll just be a career backup and a well-paid one at that. It's not just getting this $1.5 million. Maybe you'll come in if someone else gets injured. He'll be like the primary backup, and maybe making $5, $6, $7 million a season, because he's proven over this little short stretch that he can do it, and can be a starter and step in and will be that team guy as well, who'll work hard and do the right things, and he's got the experience to teach someone like you just said, who's maybe a drafted rookie, quite high, but isn't quite ready to step in immediately. I don't know. So yeah, no, definitely worth keeping an eye on. Like you said, Minshew's going to play over the next few weeks and see how he goes. I'll step in with the next one, and I want to talk about the AFC North, because this division was talked about as the division, one of, if not the best division in football. And preseason, and that is, I'm pained to say that it's not really turning out to be that way, is it? And that really started to unravel prior to the season, because had obviously Joe Burrow's calf injury. We've got the meme that is Matt Canada. I'm really surprised that he's not come up in a little section yet. Obviously the Ravens are just injured constantly for another year. And then you've got the conundrum, which is the Cleveland Browns. And obviously, they're not starting Deshaun Watson last week. And this division is wide open, but it's not because there's 4 juggernauts. It's because they're all tripping over each other to get to the top, and it's becoming a real mess. The Steelers, through some sort of Mike Tomlin wizardry, some sort of cheat that he's got involved in the NFL, a top at 3-2. The Ravens 3-2, the Browns 2-2, and then the Bengals in 4th place after a win against the Cardinals, which wasn't going right at the beginning, until Ja'Marr Chase kind of kicked off. Like, what is going on with this division? I don't really know. It's supposed to have a lot of star power. It is coming out in some respects, like Myles Garrett, TJ Watt, for example, 2 massive stars. Like I say, Ja'Marr Chase really took off last night. But it's just, I don't know, is it going to be a slow burn, or is this the way it was always going to be? And I kind of wanted to garner your guys' opinions, because is this all the way it was going to be, with all these 4 teams being quite good, or should we have expected a bit more from these teams, because they are good,
I think that's probably I think we all expected this division to be quite close, based purely on the talent levels of at least 3 of the 4 teams. If you'd given me this the way that the division is set up right now 5 weeks ago, I'd have said, well, you've got that upside down first and foremost. There's no way that the Steelers are the top of the division. And I still can't. I cannot believe that is the case, given how poor they've looked for long stretches. I do not know how they've managed to wrangle 3 wins from the first 5 games. I don't know how it's happened. The Ravens are such a funny one because like Lamar Jackson played really well yesterday, and they must have given up about 150 yards and drop passes, like in the end zone, in the middle of the field, just like drop passes left, right, and center. I mean, they're coming over to London this weekend. Hopefully, they're bringing the sticky gloves rather than the oven gloves they've been wearing. The Bengals, I mean, the Bengals were obviously the team that we expected to probably sit either at the top or second, but certainly making a deep run in the postseason. I think it's fair to say that a lot of their progress this season has been hampered by the calf of Joe Burrow, and I thought for the first time this year it kind of looked healthy, and I wonder if this is now. It has to be. If it's not now, it's not going to be this year. This has to be a turning point for them. That felt like a good win for them to get. The Cardinals, again, weird team in that they're playing quite well, but not really built to beat anybody. It felt like a good win to me, at least. So hopefully that can kind of kickstart them. And then I don't really know what the Browns are. They're good some weeks and they're pretty terrible other weeks. They're a weird one, but they're a bit of a thorn in the side of. They're going to be a thorn in the side of these ones. So unfortunately, I can't really shed any light on this division because I don't really know what it is. It feels to me, if when it all shakes out at the end of the year, it's going to be Ravens or Bengals at the top. I can't see a scenario where the Steelers, they just don't look very good offensively at all. You mentioned, Mike, I've never known a man more hated by his own fan base than that man is not welcome anywhere in the Pittsburgh area. But unfortunately, he works there. It feels to me like those are the 2 teams that are going to be there or thereabouts at the end, and you can probably flip a coin on which one. I'm still leaning towards the Ravens because that's what I said at the start, but man, it's been a weird start for that division. And, I mean, it's close. It's going to make for entertaining football in a couple of weeks' time for sure, but it's just such a weird one to gauge, right?
Yeah, Taylor, what do you reckon?
Yeah, I mean, the Ravens could they should be 4-1. You could argue they should be 5-0. They had chances to beat Indianapolis in that wet weather game in Baltimore a few weeks ago. Like, they could be 5-0. I'm inclined to agree with Thomas. Like, if the Bengals are going to get healthy, and to be fair, Burrow looked most like Joe Burrow yesterday. Like, he looked like the normal version of Joe Burrow. You know, a week before, he couldn't move at all. So, like, they're the 2 most talented teams. Again, you worry about Baltimore's kind of injuries. Because they've mounted up pretty considerably. So the weird one for me is Cleveland. I think ultimately Pittsburgh can't continue to do these kind of high wire acts every week where they just rely on the defense to make enough spectacular plays, because like at some point you're going to have something consistent from the offense. And don't get me wrong, like the Steelers have basically been like this on offense since Roethlisberger came back from the elbow injury. Like really from 2020, they've been really bad on offense. And so the defense knows like they're going to be in tight games. But like reality speaking, like if Baltimore didn't have those drops, they would have been out of sight. In that game, you got to give credit to Pittsburgh for making a game of it. And their defenders are really, really good. And they made big plays in a 1-score game. But like I think there's a fact out there, like Kenny Pickett is the worst drop back quarterback in the league currently in terms of like total success rate on pure drop back passes. He is the worst, which like, as I said, like the Steelers don't really have an offense. They're just kind of hope for maybe a big play or 2 to George Pickens, and then kind of everything else doesn't really work. It's like it's mad. Steelers are 3-2. It's mental to think they've won 3 games. They've just beaten the Baltimore Ravens, and like almost every Steeler fan on my Twitter timeline was like, "No, like we still need to fire Matt Canada. This offense stinks." And like to be fair, like that's ultimately what's probably going to keep them out of the division title race. I think it'll be down to the Bengals and the Ravens. It's just whether or not the Ravens can, like, they've lost 2 weird games. Like they've played pretty well over the course of 5 weeks. Lamar Jackson's been really, really good. It's just they've kind of engineered their own downfall, and maybe well, at least yesterday. I think you got to give Indianapolis credit for like making a game of it in difficult conditions in week 3. But like, I think it'll be Ravens, Bengals. The Browns are kind of the ultimate wild card because that defense looks really good some weeks. But then with Deshaun Watson now injured, obviously they've been on the bye week, so that should give them a chance to get him healthier. Like what Deshaun Watson, because like the Houston Texans Deshaun Watson feels like a long time ago now.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like where he was kind of a bona fide, kind of like sneaky MVP candidate. He played that well in Houston, and like he hasn't really played well at all in Cleveland since he's come back. So like how he goes, I think is going to be ultimately how the Browns go, and obviously how his health works. Like if I had to rank it, I'd probably go Steelers fourth, Browns third, and then toss a coin. But the other thing with the Bengals is they've already lost 2 divisional games now already, so it's going to put them in a must-win situation later on in the season. So that already might have them on the back foot. So, obviously the Ravens have already beaten them in Cincinnati. So, like, they've got to go to Baltimore and in all likelihood win there at some point to probably win the division. It's a really tough one because, like, none of these teams make sense for various reasons, whether it's injuries or, like, erratic play. Like, nobody does. Like, it's kind of, you can't point to one thing and say, like, outside of Pittsburgh's offense, like, they've all got various other issues that don't know, like, can be solved. Like, Bengals' defense is still a question. Like, they lost Von Bell and Jesse Bates, and a lot of Cincinnati fans are like, we really missed those 2 guys. But like, we lost them in free agency. They've been outstanding. And, like, the defense hasn't quite clicked yet. And that was kind of the bedrock of how they got to the Super Bowl a few years ago. So it's a weird one, this one. It still feels like a coin flip between Cincinnati and Baltimore for me.
Yeah, and it's only going to muddy the waters this weekend coming as well, because the Steelers are on their bye week, so they, are going to allow teams to catch up with them potentially. But the Bengals, they're playing Seattle, and then the Browns playing the 49ers as well, and the Ravens, obviously, as you mentioned, coming over to London against the Tennessee Titans, who, again, they're kind of a little bit of like this division, really. They're not good, but they can win that game against the Ravens, who, like you say, are slipping up at times and have injuries. So, yeah, it's only going to muddy the waters even more. This division is far from over. There's plenty of twists and turns, but like you say, come January, come late December, this is going to be one to watch because there's going to be drama for sure in this one. But let's move on. So, talking about London, then the Jags, Willow.
That's all I seem to do, talk about London. No, yeah, I mean, so what I wanted to talk about specifically was the question that rears its head annually and will no doubt rear its head again in a couple of weeks' time when they fly over to Germany and start talking to the German crowd. And it's just, what is the next step or the long-term plan when it comes to the NFL outside of the US? To me, this 2-week stretch kind of felt like the NFL operating or holding their own sort of experiment of sorts. I know in 2020 there were tentative plans for the Jaguars to host 2 home games at Wembley. Obviously, that didn't happen for health reasons. But this to me, more than anything, felt like, what can a team achieve if they are outside of the US for a stretch of time? And it's the question is always, do they put a franchise or franchises in Europe, or do they expand the London games? And I think what this weekend proved is that you can have a team or teams based here and not necessarily see a drop in quality against teams that are really good. Let's be honest, the Bills are a really good team. They've come off 3 sort of very impressive victories. I mean, just last week, talking about how it felt like they were back and they were fine, and they were just kind of got over the bumps, and then they come out on Sunday and kind of look a bit flat. We'll talk about it a little bit later on, but very impressive, I thought, from the Jaguars, not only to get ahead, but to keep the lead and to play very smart. At no point did it feel like they were losing either of the 2 games that they played in London over the last 2 weeks. What that means, I don't want to sort of talk too much about the things that I'm going to be writing this evening, but it feels like the NFL have to, if they're going to continually dangle the carrot of, we might put a team here one day, they have to start to really follow through. And I think there's going to be more experiments like this in the coming seasons, be that another team playing multiple games in London, or a team playing, I don't know, in Ireland and in London. I know Jaguars were given the Irish market over the summer, so they can potentially play a game in Dublin, a game in Dublin, a game and then fly back and see what happens, or non-consecutive games in London, and to see how that affects them. Like the Jaguars, just to go as a complete aside, seem absolutely content to be the guinea pig for the NFL. Just at every turn, they're going to be the team that are going to give up a home game every single year to play in London. They're going to be the team that are going to play here multiple times, and they're going to be the team that plays like half a season or something. It's just going to continue on. This weekend for me proved, well, you can see it two ways, because at the same time, did the Bills have a chance? I'm rambling, but it felt to me like this was the biggest, one of the most consistent arguments against having a team in the UK or a team in Europe has been the competitive element of it. And what this weekend showed me personally is that a team can be stationed here for a length of time and still remain competitive, arguably more so than a team that are sort of based in the US and just flying over once every now and then. So I don't know what you guys think about the prospects of that. I don't know what you guys have, if you have any thoughts on that whatsoever. But that was the biggest takeaway I had at 5:30 on Sunday afternoon.
It's a podcast in itself, this topic, isn't it? So we won't get into the weeds of it. I think, as we've said previously, I think this is the purpose of the 17th game. I think it's going to go global eventually, probably. I don't think it'll be that it'll just be in London or Germany or Mexico City or Ireland or wherever it is. I think it'll be all those places. I think it'll be all those places, and one game per team will be played abroad. Whether that'll be on the final game of the season or whether that'll be spread throughout, probably spread throughout. But that's my thoughts. My thoughts on the UK having a franchise permanently, I'm personally against it. I don't think it'll be good for the sport. I also think that you probably need to even it up, and it'd really create a lot of difficulties with the formatting of the league as well, because you couldn't have like a 33rd team or move the Jags over. I don't know. The scheduling and format of the league would have to change a lot, and I'm not sure I'm into that. There's other reasons as well, but like I said, I'm not going to get into the weeds right now. But my stance has always been I'm quite against it. Maybe we could have a podcast topic. We could have a written article about this that would get into the details of why we think these things. But for me, it'd be a no. I'm for the 17th game being abroad for everyone, I guess. But like you say, it's good for the UK. It's good for the Jags that they kind of have taken the UK under their wing almost, or vice versa. And that Shad Khan is very, very willing to, like you say, the Jags to be the guinea pig. And, the Jags have obviously enjoyed a couple of good weeks. They've looked like they're at home at the end of the day. They talked about on the commentary how the Bills fans took over Spurs Stadium, but at the end of the day, on the field, the Jags looked at home, especially with their fast start that they made. I'll come on to this because it's my game of the week. But they're my thoughts really. I'm kind of against the permanent base of someone, but it's great for the UK fans to have this. It's great for the Jags to be connected to the UK, and I think it'll be here to stay globally for the NFL. Dave, what about you? What's your thoughts on the Jags and the UK and all that sort of stuff?
Do you know what it is? Like because I've never been to a London game, I'm kind of like, don't get me wrong, I like watching the game at like 2:30 in the afternoon and then having like the other games to follow.
That is good.
Like that is cool. But what I'm kind of like ambivalent towards, like I'm not that kind of keen on like if the Jaguars become like the London Jaguars. I don't know if it's necessary. Because I think the magic of the London games is it's different teams. Do you know what I mean? Like if it is Jaguars, then you're going to see a lot of the Texans, a lot of the Titans, a lot of the Colts. Like, no disrespect to them, but like, for example, last year when the Packers came over and it was a sea of green, that was a really special moment because like that was the first time they'd played anywhere abroad. Like, I think, as I said, like I think what makes like the London game so unique is that it is different teams more often. Okay, the Jags have made it like their home away from home, but we've still had other teams come in. As I said, the Giants were here last year, the Packers were here last year, the Ravens are coming here next week. The Saints have been here, the Chiefs have been here. So I think that's kind of what makes it special in terms of the competitiveness. I'll be honest, I don't think it makes that much of a difference. Like facilities here are pretty good. Like let's be honest, like the NFL aren't suddenly gonna like be making the Bills or the Jaguars or whoever play at like your local rugby union club, where like there's dog turd in the field and everything else, like they're going to play in pretty good facilities. You're going to have the best of the best available there. So as I said, like I think from that point of view, it's just like it's cool to have different teams, and I don't know, maybe you'd lose that kind of uniqueness if you ended up playing 8 or 9 games at London every single season.
Yeah, just really quickly on that, I think that is part of the issue that, for as good as the London games are, it's not a partisan crowd. As much as it was talked about with the Bills yesterday about how it was dominant, the atmosphere doesn't seem like a partisan crowd to me. And I feel like fans would get fatigue of that, of going 9 times a season. And for us as people who've been following our respective teams for however many years, I wouldn't suddenly then support the Jags just because they're in London. Because, well, first of all, I'm like miles away from London, so I wouldn't be able to get down there the whole time. You know what? Even if I know, but I wouldn't also just ditch my team. So I think that's another quandary for them to figure out as well. Where does the fan base come from? Because we've all got teams, right?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. This wasn't me saying, it's I can't wait for somebody to come or whatever. As from my perspective, it's always been quite an interesting sort of debate because I was initially very much against even playing here on the. I talked about it on a podcast like last week or something, but the idea of sending just 2 rando Premier League teams over to play a game in New York just feels like very weird. So like from that perspective, I can see that in the scenario where if what I'm trying to figure out from sort of very much out loud is what do the NFL want? Because it feels to me at the moment they kind of want everything because that's just how capitalism works. But they want they want to have the games played in Brazil, and they want to have a game played in Spain, and they want a game in France probably, and they want a game in Australia, no doubt, and all that sort of thing. But they also kind of want to. It feels to me, again, the way they're dangling a carrot in front of Neil Reynolds more often than not. No disrespect to Neil Reynolds, but like every now and then he'll do like an interview with Roger Goodell, and then it will always come up as and we're going to see a London franchise, and Roger Goodell say, "Wow, the fan base is very patriotic, and they're all sort of really into it, so we're definitely monitoring it." And they'll again, no doubt, do that in 2 weeks' time in Germany. But this, to me, felt like this 2-week stretch felt simultaneously like we can get away with sending fewer teams to London, number one, so that saves us on having to ask someone else to give up a game or travel over. But number two, let's see how they kind of do. And if the Jags kind of pull it off, then let's see what is the next, can they do it over 3 weeks, or can they do it over 2 weeks or 2 weekends, sort of at the start and the end of the season? And I'm interested to see kind of where it goes next. I still can't figure out what the end game is for the NFL, and the end game is probably trying to get some sort of something based outside of America. We can talk about that if and when it inevitably happens, but yeah, at the very least, if what the NFL are trying to if they're trying to figure out if it's viable from a competitive standpoint, I feel like this weekend proved that it could be. That was my takeaway as the Bills threw up. What was it? We're going to talk about it in a second, but the end of that game was like nuts. But yeah,
Yeah, you're right, and let's just segue straight into the game because it is my game of the week, and it was a good game, and that has been a criticism leveled at the London games at times that the games are between bad teams or they're not good games or some of the other things that we talked about. This is 2 good teams in AFC, which is largely been revered as the much more dominant conference between 2 playoff teams from last year, and it was a good game. It was a really good game. It had both sides of the football for both teams playing really well in stretches. Obviously, some unfortunate injuries for the Bills, but that shouldn't take away from how the Jags played and how they managed to pull off this win. They started really fast, playing really well, and it then came down to Josh Allen basically going into psycho mode at the end of the game. When I was really comfortably looking at my fantasy opponent who had Josh Allen, who had about 10 points, I think I can live with that from Josh Allen. And then the fourth quarter comes around, the Bills score 13 points, and they look like they were on the cusp of bringing it back, especially the drive where he went 75 yards in three plays, which is probably where the fantasy jumped up to about 30 points, and I was looking a little less comfortable. This was a really, really good game. Did being in London help the Jags essentially start fast? I know, Tabe, you said you don't think it made that much of a difference, but it certainly looked like it at the beginning. But yeah, I just thought this was a really good advertisement for the AFC playoffs, because this is what sort of game we're going to get in a few months' time between two great teams, and a really good advertisement for, you know, the Jags, Trevor Lawrence, Doug Pederson, and how they're still on this upward curve. You know, we talked about it last year, we talked about it earlier in the season, and they're still doing it. And this is a big signature win in London, second week of being there consecutively, as you mentioned. And like I say, they're kind of laying a marker down to what they should do and go on and win the AFC South relatively easily, especially if Gardner Minshew is one of the quarterbacks, and the other two teams still finding out things about themselves. But yeah, great win for the Jags, and really, like I say, signature win in London, which is great for everyone involved at this side of the pond as well. Any other thoughts on the game itself before we move on?
This was really good. I'll just have two things. Like, Lawrence was exceptional, considering like that offensive line started getting more and more injuries, and they hurried him a lot. Buffalo, to be fair, like the pass rush got home on a number of occasions. So like Lawrence was exceptional, especially on some of those third downs. Like he was brilliant. Like on the third and longs, third and mediums to Calvin Ridley, he was like outstanding.
Yeah,
probably one of his best games. Like one of his best games he's had as a starter. So like from his point of view, like he was outstanding, as was Travis Etienne. I think the bigger worry for me now is I'm not sure if Buffalo can win the Super Bowl without Matt Milano and Tre'Davious White. Like you look at, like, for example, on a lot of those, like you look at on those third downs, like everyone in the stadium knew the ball was going to Calvin Ridley. In a one-on-one matchup with Kyrie Elam, he won all those matchups. And they were able to convert those. Maybe Tre'Davious White gets better coverage or pass break or whatever, but like he's a better player than Kyrie Elam, and he wasn't available. You look at Milano, obviously now this injury sounds horrendous. He got a broken leg and a torn ACL, so like he's out probably for a long time. And I'm just not sure now. Like, can they stop enough of like everybody else? Like, I'm just imagining, like, if they played Cincinnati, just for argument's sake, like if that's Jamar Chase on Kyrie Elam, you back Jamar Chase to win that matchup, with Joe. Like, I just worry now, like, defensively, like, that's two big hitters they've lost. Now, obviously, they're getting Von Miller back, and he'll slowly kind of work his way in. But, like, Milano was playing, like, at an all-pro level. Like, he's been exceptional all season. And then to take him out, to take Tre'Davious White out, I just think, like, it was a bad day all around. Like, obviously the penalties were bad. Like, Buffalo had so many penalties. You're just not going to win any game with that many penalties. But the injuries were just a massive worry for Buffalo now.
Yeah, well, even if you take it back 1 week and you think, well, how did they beat the Dolphins? They beat the Dolphins by the linebackers playing really well and clogging up the middle of the field. That was Matt Milano. And they'll probably, they do have to go up against the Dolphins at least once, maybe twice in the playoffs. And can they do that again and execute that game plan? Probably not, because he is one of the best linebackers in the league. So yeah, I think you're right. It's a massive blow, and kind of a blow to their credentials as well. Like you say, the Super Bowl or potential Super Bowl winner.
Yeah.
Just on the other side of the board is the trip couldn't have come at a better time, really, for the Jaguars. I've made a point to repeat myself over and over again in the off season that the only thing that's going to stop the Jacksonville Jaguars being good this year is the fact that they are the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they have a history of being not very good at all. And they very much started the season not very good at all. This sort of trip outside, get yourself out away from what you're comfortable in, put yourself into they very much put themselves into the unknown, player sort of staying in a foreign country for 10 days to play 2 games. Almost feels like the sort of trip that they're going to look back on in 10 weeks time and go, mate, that was kind of the turning point. I know that they played a not so great team last week, but the Bills are legit. Like, the Bills are a team that we thought were going to be sort of right at the end, and they still might be one of those teams right at the end, seeing how they obviously overcome the injuries that have piled up for them. But this very much feels like they've kind of got themselves back on track. They've beaten a team that they didn't necessarily weren't expected to have beaten at the start of the season. They go into a divisional matchup this weekend against a team that are banged up themselves, much more confident. The connection between Ridley and Lawrence was, it did wonders for my fantasy team. Not that it mattered because of DJ Moore. Curse the name DJ Moore, but it felt to me like it couldn't have come at a more perfect time. You can fully see a scenario where these two games don't happen in the way that they have, and they're in a bit more of a hole than they are because they just can't get out of themselves, kind of force themselves to do something, to sort of move through and sort of connect a bit more. Team building at its absolute sort of finest. So pleased for them in that regard. I think you're bang on about the Bills. It's going to be very interesting to see how they overcome those in what is going to be a tough division stroke conference. How much of Josh Allen's arm can they ride, and how far can they ride it? Because he as good as he is, he can't do it all. As much as they would love him to do it all, he can't do it all. He needs help, and he did need some help yesterday as well. But yeah, otherwise, really good game. Enjoyed that one, especially considering there was like no points scored for 2 quarters and it just exploded at the end. I was thoroughly engaged throughout. Yeah, it was good.
No, and it was, like I say, it was a good game. So let's stop talking seriously about football and let's basically turn our attention to having a massive Schadenfreude fest, because you're going to talk about the the Jets and the Broncos, and then we've got our memes, which is going to segue really nicely into that. Let's just say.
Jets and Broncos, man, I enjoyed this one because I've got no dog in this fight whatsoever. Like it's very much. I don't want. I've got no affiliation with the New York Jets. Yeah, I hate Sean Payton with a burning passion. But I mean, there's part of me for the past 5 weeks that has felt so sorry for the New York Jets. Not because they're without Aaron Rodgers. I could care less about who their quarterback is, but because their expectation was so high only 6 weeks ago. And it was taken from them so quickly, and then it's all back to Zach Wilson, and everything that Zach Wilson does is so. It seems to be so magnified to the nth degree. Like every pass that is wide, every run that he misses on, he feels like he's unfairly criticized because we kind of know what he is at this point. But last week he looked pretty good against the Chiefs. I think they were disappointing. It was disappointing for them to have not won it, but I thought he handled himself really well. I'm not saying that he was like the reason why they beat the Broncos this weekend, because the Broncos suck like big time. It's so funny to see Sean Payton going all the way to Denver in freezing cold conditions and in next to no oxygen in the air and put out one of the worst offenses I've ever seen. They did a really good job. One of the things that they put up on Red Zone was that the Jets and the Giants at one point yesterday were the only team to have not taken a snap while having the lead all season. At no point had they taken an offensive snap while leading, and the Jets did it. They broke their own duck, despite nearly fumbling it away immediately. It's such a nothing game because I don't think there's anything riding on this game long term all season. But every time they cut back to a red zone, I was like, man, I really hope the Jets are going to do something. And I feel like a lot of that is that deep-rooted hatred of Sean Payton and everything he has done for the league for the worst. Yeah, I really enjoyed that one. I'm glad they got the win. I'm glad that the social media team got to enjoy themselves afterwards. And I'm more than anything, I'm kind of glad that Zach Wilson wasn't the reason why they lost, because I feel kind of bad for him still. Like, I don't know what his career looks like in 2 years' time, let alone 2 weeks' time. But like, I'm really kind of pulling for him, kind of rooting for him to turn it around a bit. I don't know. Maybe the sort of last couple of weeks we can see a bit of a change. But yeah, that was my game of the week. It would have been the Falcons, but let's be honest, for a long stretch of that game, nothing happened. So yeah, let's go with that. Yeah.
Yeah, I know what you mean about Zach Wilson, because he was obviously a punchline last year. He's comfortably the worst quarterback in the league. Using a lot of metrics, and sometimes it just gets boring to keep punching down in that way, doesn't it? You kind of hope that these guys do kind of show the talent that they obviously have. There's a reason why he was drafted second overall. Some draft picks are stupid, but the Jets needed a quarterback. They obviously believe in him, and he's got talent at the end of the day, and he made some good throws in this, and I can completely get on board with the it's not so much Sean Payton sentiment for me, but it's anti-Broncos sentiment, kind of obviously. It's good to see them fail, and it's nice to see Sean Payton fail as well, especially because quite a lot of Chargers fans were kind of calling Sean Payton to take the Chargers job and pleading for him to take the Chargers job this year. I wasn't on that train, and I'm kind of just happy it vindicates my point of view, really. If we can't do anything like that or anything more than that, then that's a good backup.
Very much on the right side of history in that regard. Awful human being. Anyway, on to the next one. What's the next game we got?
So, I mean, do you want to talk about the Falcons? Because I thought the ending of that game was particularly exciting. Obviously, CJ Stroud, I thought, had pulled off a fantastic comeback drive, and then also snatched away. Give you a couple of minutes to bask in the glory of a win. For
all right, yeah.
After you were in such pain last week as well.
Falcons minute. Okay, here we go. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Desmond Ridder looked really good. Desmond Ridder looked so good for so long, and the run game wasn't happening, and we were just fumbling the ball away, and the offensive line was giving up penalties. And then the Texans weren't doing anything. They were just getting into field goal range and kicking it. And then they had that touchdown at the end. And I'm like, man, for the first time ever, everybody has let down Desmond Ridder because he's been electric. And then he puts together a game-winning drive of 60 yards in a minute and a half, not even. Younghoe Koo comes out, most clutch kicker in the NFL. Gotten over that conversation I had with him last week where he very much told me he hated me. So he put that to the back of his mind. And to win it. And Texans are a weird team that I don't really know if they're good or not, but they got some. I think CJ Stroud's going to be a superstar. He's so safe. The best thing I can say about he's so. And there was one pass that he made that Jesse Bates could have picked off, and that would obviously have been his first career interception, and it didn't happen at that point. You got the luck, you got the rub of the green at this point. But there was no other pass that looked close to being it was either bang on the money or just in the one place where nobody can get it, and that's that's something that Zach Wilson probably could have done with 2 years ago. Good win for the Falcons, 3-2. Not quite top of the division because I think the Buccaneers had a bye week. But I've got a mate who works for one of the betting companies, and he was asked to put together a piece on NFL quarterbacks. And last week he was telling me how there was an office-wide debate on the worst quarterback in the NFL. Is it Kenny Pickett or is it Desmond Ridder? And I'm like, man, that's so harsh. So I messaged him immediately after the game yesterday. You've got to move Desmond Ridder up 31 places. That man's legitimate.
I'm glad you enjoyed that. And also, if it wasn't for, I guess, I don't know, Koo maybe took a little bit of shine off this, but you almost got your Arbisto moment as well with Bijan's potential, at the time, game-winning.
I didn't really catch on, did it? That's a shame. Hopefully next time they come over, if and when, we can have a bit more of that. But no, one of the great things that the Falcons are doing recently is they've been putting out more decent social media stuff, and recently they've started doing sort of shots from the roof, like bird's eye view shots. Yeah, they're very cool. Yeah, and there's always Bijan Robinson, and it's always slowed down just as he jukes someone out of their soul. It's just kind of like bam bang, and he's like, oh my god. People can't move like that. How are your ankles? Touch wood, touch all that good stuff. But man, what? Yeah. Arbisto indeed. What a play. That man is different gravy. Let me tell you.
We'll get it rolling. We'll get it rolling again. Let's move on. Let's keep the fun rolling. Obviously, you've got that's the theme. This game is the theme of your meme as well, Tom.
Have we got another game? Did we talk about Giants Dolphins, or is that? Did I imagine that?
Oh, we can do a quick line on this. Not so much from the Miami point of view, because let's be honest, they're really good. What else is there to say? But here's a mad stat: Daniel Jones through 5 weeks has been sacked more times than Tom Brady did in 17 last season, which kind of shows where the Giants are at. He's basically just getting beaten from pillar to post at the moment. Some of it's on him. There was a sack yesterday where I need to give a shout out to Nate Tice from the Athletic NFL Show, because he tweeted me about it. I'm like, oh, that's a humble brag moment for me, right? But I was basically there was a free rush that Jones needed to have accounted for, and knowing that he was hot. So basically, get rid of the ball before that guy gets home. He never did. He never even looked up, and he got his head blown off. And then there was other sacks where, like, the Giants' offensive line at the moment struggles with like stunts and extra rushers, and when like defensive tackles kick outside and edge rushers kick inside, and like he's just getting destroyed. It's a really kind of crazy situation where I can't remember too many times where they've given a quarterback a big contract and then like everything around him kind of is rubbish. Like, because we've seen before with offensive lines, like poor offensive lines, like quarterbacks can get rid of the ball pretty quickly. They give it to a big play. Like Bengals did it in their Super Bowl, yeah. Like Chase and Higgins and Boyd and these people were so good that Burrow could fire them in difficult situations and they'd make big plays for him before the defense got home. Daniel Jones can't really do that. That offense is like, outside of Darren Waller, they've got like a really poor skill position group, especially with no Saquon Barkley. They had 3 turnovers yesterday. They didn't score a single touchdown on the resulting possession after the turnover, which, like, you're just not going to win. You know, teams always say, "I'll win the turnover battle." Well, they did, and they still lost by miles because they just couldn't score. They can't move the ball consistently, and like they got really big issues. Like I think between him and like the offensive line, it feels like they've never met each other before they play on Sundays, which is kind of concerning, as I said, because like all he's doing is just getting almost every play he's under duress, and like let's be honest, he's either going to end the season injured or in concussion protocol a lot. So it's pretty concerning. Like it's gone so wrong for them so quickly, especially on offense because the defense played pretty well, but they just can't move the ball with any consistency because he's not accounting for pressure when pressure comes, and then the offensive line aren't picking it up either. So between 6 people, they can't protect the quarterback. So like between 5 offensive linemen and the quarterback himself, so they're just screwing themselves, and it's tough to watch because like listen, like Daniel Jones isn't going to win an MVP or he's not going to go in the Hall of Fame one day, but he's just got no chance at the moment. You know, it's pretty grim. Do you know what I mean? I'm like part of me thinks like this looks kind of like what Matthew Stafford dealt with when he first got drafted, where he's just getting like his head kicked in from left to right. He's just got nowhere to turn. Even when he tries to break the pocket, he's getting hit hard by linebackers. So, like, as I said, from a Giants' perspective, this is just going to get worse before it gets any better. And at what point do you kind of take him out to protect himself? I mean, you've paid the guy the contract, you've given him 40 million quid. That's an investment that you've made. It's no good, like, in a lost season like this, it's no good basically just seeing him flat on his backside every other play, which is what it feels like at the moment.
Yeah, they've had a massive regression, haven't they? Sorry, go on, Willow.
No, I was going to say, I know we shouldn't put too much stock into sort of PFF and their sort of grading system, but they released the blocking grading system for the Giants offensive line yesterday. Literally one player over 30. And they've got one player, Jalen Mayfield, who used to be a Falcon and was pretty dreadful. Ended the day with a 0.0 blocking rating. Like, surely you just get 1 point for just being there. But apparently they were better off without him and just playing 4 guys. So I mean, like, that's something that needs to be resolved pretty quickly if they're gonna sort of, like you say, keep him alive, let alone sort of grind some wins out from somewhere.
Yeah, no, just kind of regrets back to the mean, haven't they, after making the playoffs last year, and kind of everyone going, how did that happen? And obviously the Dolphins just on fire. They weren't at their best, I don't think, last night either. But got the win and didn't really need to work for it too much, like you say, beating themselves in some ways, the Giants at the minute. So yeah, after my false start a second ago, 5-yard penalty for me. You've got your
Desmond Ridder was on fire with the false starts against the Texans, getting them to jump. I saw this on Twitter earlier. His hard count was like unbelievable. Like so many times the Texans players jumped offside. Like it's like Aaron Rodgers, Tom Brady level of IQ. Like it was exceptional. Do you know what I mean? Like that was brilliant. That like they jumped hard so many times. It was brilliant. Like fair play to Desmond Ridder for that. That was like savvy streetwise football. He just kept earning himself 3 first downs. Like he was excellent.
Yeah, so someone spent the whole week feeding him my tweets because like there's no way he wasn't going out just to spite me specifically. And fair play to him.
So yeah, let's get into our memes and gifts then. So Willow, you've got like I say, one that's Broncos Jets related.
Yes, so I've sent it. I've sent it up already. I literally couldn't. But I couldn't make anything up myself. This is perfect. The over the last summer or the summer before, Netflix put out a film about Sean Payton and the year that he had off. Not the year that he had off after he retired. The year that he had off because he was suspended for the league for doing loads of dodgy stuff while he was a coach and winning the Super Bowl. Lest we forget. But it was had Kevin James, Paul Blart himself playing Sean Payton. And obviously, Sean Payton's been talking his stuff about the Denver Broncos and the atrocious coaching job that the previous head coach did, and how the New York Giants were nothing but the off-season champs. While they just posted a picture of Kevin James as Sean Payton in a Broncos hat. When you've lost to the off-season champs, that's going to go up on the screen. That made me laugh so much. I mean, I feel like it's an unhealthy relationship that I have with Sean Payton at this stage. The level of disrespect I have for him, but my respect for the Jets just went through the roof. So, yeah.
I mean, the Jets winning that game that everyone was looking forward to as soon as he made those comments was great for the content all around. So that's the result that everyone who wanted good content, good online kind of beef and jokes and memes, just dream scenario. But yeah, Tabe, talking of disrespect, which we were talking about last night, and the Cowboys and 49ers.
That was bad. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not like a massive Dallas Cowboys hater, because ultimately, like, they don't play in my division, so I don't cross paths with them often. Do you know what I mean? Like, the Lions play the Cowboys once every 3 or 4 years. But yeah, the Brock Purdy with Dak Prescott on his shoulders, like he's a little kid. I think that's the perfect kind of meme for where these two teams are after last night, because that was about as ferocious a beatdown of a quote unquote like other good team. Like, they made the Cowboys look like the Bears or the Panthers, or you know what I mean, like one of those teams with one win or no wins. And obviously the Cowboys have been pretty good this season up until that point. And I think it was just, yeah, they got taken to school. That was like a real good beatdown that the 49ers delivered them. And like, they look terrifyingly good right now. Like, I feel like only injuries can stop them. And fair play, we've got to give Brock Purdy flowers. Like, for as much as like people say, oh, it's the offense. Well, like, other quarterbacks with like unheralded backgrounds have come into that system and struggled. Like I said, the million quarterbacks that they had whenever Garoppolo got hurt, which was pretty often. It's not like they were winning 10 games in a row. They haven't lost since like last October. It's 15 regular season game wins in a row now. The only game that they've lost in that stretch was when Brock Purdy's arm destroyed in Philadelphia, in the NFC Championship game, when he just ran out the quarterback. So, like, yeah, right now, like, yeah, it's kind of scary how good they are, and what they did to Dallas, especially Dak Prescott. Dak Prescott's a pretty good quarterback. Like, I'm not going to sit here and hate on him like a lot of people do, but they made him look very, very bad last night.
Maybe George Kittle will have that meme on a T-shirt next week. You never know. To follow his one from this week that he was showing the Dallas fans. And then to finish this off, my one is one I think that all NFL fans can get behind. We're all sick of any dynasty, right? We're going to be sick of the Chiefs very soon, if not already. We're all sick of the Patriots. We're all reveling in Bill Belichick. So my one's this, with all the NFL fans celebrating the death of the Patriots and Bill Belichick dynasty in New England. We can all get behind this one. So yeah, I'm happy with this one. Very happy. Anyway,
I feel like I say it every week. Sorry, I feel like I say it every week. I can't bring myself at any point. Even when they're pulling Mac Jones for the second week in a row, and they haven't scored a touchdown for like forever by the sounds of things. It's just kind of like, no, they're still going to turn it around though. Just watch. Like, I've seen this before. But no.
Yeah, I think my preseason prediction of him being fired is getting close, or closer anyway. By the end of the season, but yeah, we'll see. We will see. Anyway, let's move into our Monday night predictions. Finish things off. Just to recap last week: Seahawks at Giants. Point for me, point for Tabe for predicting the Seahawks win. None of our props came in, but result-wise, a couple of points for us. So moving into this week, we've got Packers at Raiders tonight as we record. Tabe, what's your prediction for Packers at Raiders?
really hate this because like all logic points to the Green Bay Packers, and I really don't want them. I want them to lose, so like the gap between them and the Lions gets even bigger. But they've had like the most rest you can have without having a bye week. They played 2 Thursdays ago, for goodness sake, so they've been like off for a really good while. And I just can't see them after like whenever a coach says, "Oh, we got manhandled and we got like our asses kicked," like that's kind of challenging the character of a team. And I feel like they'll bounce back and win. Although apparently Aaron Jones is out with a hamstring injury. So like, and the other thing as well is I don't know if it's like because the Packers are very bad against the run. If Josh Jacobs can have one of his better games, then maybe, just maybe. But I just think the Packers will make enough plays and probably win. I'll go 28-24 for Green Bay.
Ooh, close
I think
one.
it'll
And
be close, yeah.
what's your prop that you're throwing in there as well? Are you throwing it Josh Jacobs' way or elsewhere?
I'll go with the Packers rebound again in the run defense, and that Josh Jacobs doesn't rush for 100 yards.
Okay, so Packers hold Jacobs to less than 100. Okay, Willow, what about you? What's your prediction?
Yeah, I'm miles behind. I tried swinging last week and it did not pay off. So let's just try and get some more points on the board with what appears to be I've gone Packers to win. 28-17. The Raiders are weird because I don't know. Sometimes in games they actually look really competent, and other times in games they look really incompetent. And at no point does it look like they can be capable of being competent for more than like 4 plays in a row. And I think like you said, the Packers got beat up pretty bad last time they played, but they've had a long time off. Aaron Jones be damned. They are a better team than the Raiders, and I know that it feels like they both need a win. I don't think the Raiders have the ability to be good going into the end of the season, whereas the Packers, if they can get 1 win and 2 wins, then you can probably see them start to go on something of a roll. So I've gone with them to win, and my random prop bet is who I don't even know who the Raiders are starting at quarterback. Is Garoppolo fit yet? Are they playing that
I think he is. I think
poor boy.
He is back. Yeah.
Well, whoever it is throwing 2 interceptions and fumbling the ball twice as well. They're going to get.
Sounds like the Raiders quarterback.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think this will be as close as you guys are talking about. I think the Packers will win quite comfortably. I've got them winning 38-21. There's going to be points in this game. I think the Packers should have enough to win. They've not tightened up the defense too much. I think Jair Alexander is back for this one, so maybe that'll mean that they are a little bit tighter at the back. But I think John Love throws for 400 yards and 4 touchdowns, and the Packers leave Vegas with a big W. Much to Tabe's disappointment then when I said that, by the sounds of it. But we'll see. We've not been doing too well on our predictions, so who knows how that'll shake out. But all of us going for the Packers. So hopefully some difference can be made in the scores with our props coming in, or the margin of victory being bang on what we say. But yeah, lads, that's bringing us to close of another podcast. It's been great to spend the past hour or so with you guys, talking about all sorts of football, all sorts of ridiculous stuff, and just having a good old laugh with how the unfortunate lie. I've got a Plays I Like video coming out tomorrow, as you'll be seeing this on a Tuesday. It's coming out on Wednesday. It's on Justin Fields and the Bears. It's a different one. It's a different one this weekend. We're not talking about a quarterback that's doing particularly well, although he is picking it up in recent times. Lots of written content over at touchdown.co.uk. We've got some 5 Wide from Willow. We've got other bits and pieces coming out all week. Very, very busy week as always. And obviously our college content as well as our Canadian football content, which is strangely on Thanksgiving watch now as well this weekend. So yeah, like and subscribe to the content if you're liking the video stuff. Go over to touchdown.co.uk if you're liking the written stuff, and let us know. But yeah, thanks guys. Thanks for watching. And thanks for joining me, you two, as well. So yeah, we'll see you next time. And we'll see you there.